Hi, my name is Monica, and in 2016, I was arrested for sorority hazing. So I'm going to tell you how it happened and what happened before, during, and after the arrest. I remember my first real introduction to Greek life and sororities, fraternities. It was probably growing up. I'm sure you remember Legally Blonde. She was in a sorority and it looks like the funnest thing ever. There was I remember this show called Greek. There was Scream 2, they were in a sorority. And it all in the early 2000s there were so many movies, I feel those college, you know what I'm saying,
yeah, so it always interests you,
right?
Okay.
So I feel when I was in high school, I remember there was a girl who she went to Arizona State, and back then it was the only real social media was Facebook. This was 2012, 2013. And I remember she was a freshman at Arizona State, and she was part of sorority there, and that's a huge Greek life school. And I remember on Facebook seeing her post all these pictures of bid day and these mixers, and it was all of these beautiful college girls going to sports games, wearing wearing outfits and doing just living their lives. It looked so much fun. And that's when I feel I was because I'm an only child, so I don't have any older sisters or anything like that. And that's when I was oh my God, this looks so much fun. I would love to join a sorority when I get to college. And it was never really a question. I knew I was going to go to college. I wanted to originally I wanted to pursue child psych or something like that. And I wound up going a different direction. But regardless, I knew I was I wanted to go to a big university, and I wanted to join Greek life. There's a lot of lingo in Greek life. So I'm going to try to do my best to
I don't know anything about it, so I'm curious.
Okay, yeah. I feel if you were in it, you know too much about it. And if you weren't in it, you have no idea what I'm talking about. So I'm going to do my best to explain everything and what these words mean.
Okay.
All right. So when I got to college, I really, to be honest with you, I had no academic direction. I had applied to a bunch of big universities. I remember I had gotten into Ohio State, and I couldn't go because the tuition was just way too expensive. And I wound up accepting my offer to go to the University at Albany, which is upstate New York. And I was so excited to go. I remember I was one of maybe 5 kids from my graduating class who were going. So I live on Long Island in New York, and it's very common to go to schools upstate, but the University at Albany and University at Buffalo are the most the bigger ones. So I was really thrilled to be going there. There's thousands and thousands of students, and I wanted that big lecture hall, exciting experience. I remember when I got there, I was really excited to make friends. I wasn't really focused on so much on classes and thinking about what it was that I wanted to do with my life. And I was more really focused on what my social life was going to be like. And I think that's really common.
I was going to say, I think that's really, really normal.
Yeah.
I feel for me, the only reason I didn't have that desire is because I feel for me in high school, that's kind of when I did all my partying and my going out, and I've always had bad anxiety. So the idea of going away to college and staying away, it just didn't interest me whatsoever. But I can see how for somebody else that, because I can remember watching those movies and thinking it looked fun, but thinking I would never be able to do it because of my anxiety issues. But yeah, I feel it provides a sense of this crazy social life, and that you have these friends and the sense of community and your own group. It's almost that you're walking into something that it's okay, for the next 4 years, this is my this is my group, this is my thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, because you kind of are like, you're like, well, I want to be a part of something big. I want to be around people that are like me, like women who are like me that want the same things as me.
And essentially you're starting over going into college.
Exactly.
So it kind of like gives you that entryway as soon as you get there.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of like college freshmen, they drop out like their first semester, first year, and I think it's because they get way too involved and like sucked into their social life aspect.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, of course their parents are like so mad. I think though that like what people overlook is how difficult it is to like really, I mean, go away to college at that age. Like it's scary enough to move to a different place when you're an adult, but to move to a different place and, you know, to not know anyone and kind of.
And it's hard to make friends if you're not a part of things like that.
Yeah.
Because I did go to some colleges, some away, well, one away. And I like really didn't make friends like at all.
It's so hard.
It's right, because it's like, what are you supposed to meet someone in class, or like it's rare unless you're like, I don't even know, because I didn't even really go to parties because I hated it.
Yeah, it's like it can be very, very tough, depending on like your level of social anxiety. And me, honestly, I think that's what propelled me to join a sorority, because I was like, well, at least if I'm able to join a sorority, like, and I'll, you know, I have like a set group of friends. I don't have to worry about like mingling all the time.
Right.
You know, and I know that sounds silly because it's like a social group, but it almost just felt like the sense of security or something like that in a weird way. Yeah. So I think that like when I got there, like I said, I was definitely more focused on making friends and what I could do to, you know, like find a sorority. And it turns out that you really, honestly, if you're an incoming like freshman, I mean, at least at that school, you don't really have to worry about that because, and I'll get into why. So essentially the way that student housing works in Albany is the campus is uptown, and as a freshman and a sophomore, you live in the dorms that surround the school. And like they basically, the juniors and seniors are allowed to live off campus. So they live like in the downtown area, and that's not necessarily regulated by the university. So these houses are like privately owned by landlords. Okay. And they are all within like 7 or 8 blocks of each other. So that's where like all of the parties happen. So it's off campus.
So that's like the downtown area.
Correct. Yeah.
And then uptown, what really like is there? I'm asking this because like I watch Gossip Girl. I'm like my 3rd time watching it, but like I like it makes me wonder like how it actually is, like all the different parts of New York. Like, is that like what's like the fancier part? So
Albany is a separate like city from New York. It's upstate.
Got it.
So that's like it's a much smaller city. It's a very old, but it's apart from New York City. So
it's completely different. It's on its own.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, there's the uptown area, which has a lot of the like I think like federal and state buildings and stuff like that. It also has the University of Albany, and the downtown area is more of like student housing.
Okay.
Lots of like more shops and just like more like residential.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, but it is essentially like a small old city.
Okay.
So that's like overall that's pretty much what it is. And in order to get downtown as a student, as a freshman, or you know anyone, because typically after freshman year you bring your car and whatever, you're allowed to park and stuff. But basically you take the bus, which is paid for by the university. So it is like it's like a city bus, but you get free admission onto the bus.
That's nice that they do that.
Yeah. And so you're able to get downtown that way, and it's like a really short ride. So the first few weeks of like college, I was like nonstop partying. I just wanted to go out. I wanted to like meet people. I was like really excited. I made like friends with my roommates and my suite mates and stuff like that, like right away. And there would be like parties in the dorms, and then we would all go downtown, like to the downtown area, to kind of like see if we could find a party, or like, you know, someone always knows someone who, you know, is like hosting a party and stuff like that. And if you've ever been to like a frat party, you kind of know what it's like. It's very like it's like the girls get in for free, guys have to pay, or they have to like know someone there or something like that. Like they have to know a brother who's in the frat. It's so corny.
At this point, you're living just in the dorms, right?
Correct. Okay. Yeah. So that like right now, like I was at this time I was like a freshman.
And was school started yet, or were you there early?
So like you'll go to orientation, and then which is like where you meet some people and stuff like that, because you're like all in the same boat and you all want to make friends. This though, I think since we're like moving into the dorms, you get there like a week or a couple of days early.
Okay.
And what happens is you just have nothing to do for those days, so you just wind up going out and like, you know, drinking and trying to like meet people and stuff like that, like mingling.
Okay.
So classes don't start until what's called like syllabus week. I'm sure you know, which you also do nothing for, because you just get your syllabus and leave.
Right.
So that's just another excuse to like go to a class for, you know, 10, 15, 20 minutes and then like go. And so, you know, you really do have a couple of weeks in the beginning of the semester to really just like fuck around and do like nothing at all.
Right.
Which is why, you know, you use it as an excuse to kind of go out and mingle and, you know, meet people and stuff like that. So I remember like the first couple of parties that I went to were at like frat houses. They were in these disgusting, dingy basements. Like these houses were literally,
and I'm sure they were packed too, right?
Packed, like complete fire hazard.
Right.
Like falling apart. These houses were caving in. Like,
that is funny.
Yeah, and to the point where it was so sketchy. It was a little scary.
Right.
Yeah, and then, you know, they have like a keg in the basement, and like you don't even know if the cups are clean. And like looking back now, I'm 26, and I'm like, ew.
Right.
Like,
why would I do that? Why was I there?
Right.
Well, you got to do what you got to do to party.
Exactly.
That was the thing then.
Because like that's the thing. That's all you're worried about. That's all you're like anxious to do.
Right.
You're just like, oh, this is so cool.
It's like the exciting thing. It's like, where are we going? Who are we going to see?
Exactly.
Let's just do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course you want to meet guys and stuff like that. And so what'll happen is at these parties, like upperclassmen girls will come up to you and they'll make friends with you. And of course you're like anxious to make friends. So you're thrilled. And, you know, they'll dance with you, they'll like get you drinks, and like, you know, they'll introduce you to their friends, and they'll just kind of like take you under their wing in a way. Which like you're so vulnerable at that age. And especially when you're like brand new to a college. It's almost a little predatory in a way, you know what I mean? It's in its own way. And so that definitely happened a couple of different times, like a couple of different nights. And these girls will get your social media, they'll get your number, and then they'll text you like they're your friends. And of course you expect that they are your friend, because you're like, why else would they be talking to me? But these girls are in organizations or orgs, which are sororities, and they're trying to recruit you because that's their job. So every girl in the org has a job, and they're either like rush captain or social, and that's why they're talking to you. So, you know, it's, of course you don't expect that. And essentially what happened for me is I had met this girl. I'll leave her name out, I guess. She was incredibly nice. She was actually, I think she was a senior. And, you know, just felt like we had so much in common, and like she just loved to go out and party. She was like a free spirit. And she is like that, you know, because I know that now. But she was very good at kind of like roping me into something that I had no idea, you know, I had no idea what I was about to get into.
Right.
And she also did this with I want to say 5 other girls. So there was 6 girls in what was called my pledge class, which is essentially you agree to pledge the sorority. So,
And what does that mean?
that means that you, like, pledging means that you want to join, and that you're about to embark on like requirements for getting into the sorority.
Got it.
You don't know what those things are until you kind of move forward with it.
Okay.
And so that's where the hazing comes in.
So how did she met you at this party,
Mm-hmm.
and then were you guys just hanging out, or how did she introduce the whole sorority idea to you?
So like I said, I went into college already knowing that I wanted to join a sorority.
Okay.
I just had no idea what the process
Got
was
it.
like, or what it was supposed to be like. So, you know, from an outside perspective, I thought that it was really all about like parties, meeting people, meeting guys, going out, you know, like having some elite access to like a social life.
Okay.
I really didn't understand that it's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be about philanthropy and being part of something that's supposed to like help propel your career in the future. It's not like the social aspect is really supposed to aid in more of like a philanthropic
Okay.
like mission. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what it's supposed to be. But at this school, it really wasn't that way at all.
I feel like they don't show it like that either in movies.
Yeah,
like
they don't.
no, I would just assume it's like a
Yeah, it's like a social
a party
organization.
thing, right.
That's it. Yeah. And so, you know, it was like I remember she had when I had met her, she was like, "Yeah, I'm part of this sorority. It's called Alpha Omicron Pi." And I love my sisters. Like they love me. Like we're literally a family. We do anything and everything together. Like these girls, like, you know, we have so much fun. Like we go out, you know, we share clothes, like, and, you know, coming from like a family where I was an only child, I was like, oh my God, that sounds so cool. These are the sisters that I never had, like, you know, and everything just seems like sunshine and rainbows. Like,
yeah.
It wasn't just that though. Like when she would bring me around, she would like introduce me to all of the sisters in the sorority. They were all really sweet and nice, and they all kind of like took me under their wing, and they were like, you know, they do a very good job making you feel special. And I remember like she would bring me to like fraternity parties. She would like introduce me to like all the brothers, and like she'd be like, you know, like this is like a mixer, like we wouldn't have been able to like, you wouldn't have been able to come here if like, you know, we weren't friends and stuff like that. And it's just like looking back on it, it all just seems so like stupid, because it's like, you know, it's all very like pointless and it's fun in the moment. But again, I had no idea like what I was about to get into.
Well, I think also 90% of what we do in life, we can look back on at one point and be like, why did I do that? Or that was stupid, or what was the point? But I think too, it's like at that age and going into college, like all we want is to have fun. Like I remember there were points in my life, not college, but like in high school, I would have done anything to get a little bit of alcohol because I was underage. And it's like you're not thinking about anything else, because like it sounds funny and stupid, but I feel like for most people, there's a point in your life where the only thing that matters is like partying.
Yes, like you know exactly what I mean. And I was a little bit that way in high school too. I think that I was definitely like rebellious, like, you know, in my teens.
Mm-hmm.
And so it almost just like tripled when I went to college, because I was like, this is like where the real fun is going to happen.
I think
you know what
too,
I mean?
like who doesn't have the desire to be liked by a lot of people and have a lot of friends and have a group of girlfriends that you feel like we're so close and we're like sisters, and it's like that makes sense to me. Like I feel like who wouldn't want that? I mean, unless you just don't, but like even me, somebody that didn't like I didn't have an interest in a sorority, I still feel like as a girl like that, like I'm social, like I love to have friends and talk to people, like why not?
Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, definitely.
And you don't go into it thinking anything bad's going to happen. That's probably the last thing on your mind. You're thinking of all the positives and the social things and, you know, all that stuff. So
absolutely. Yeah. You're just like, and that's just part of being young too. You don't ever think that anything bad's going to happen. Yeah. You think you're going to like, also if you do bad things, you think that if you've gotten away with it this far, you know, like, you know,
you're invincible.
Right. So, anyway, this girl who was recruiting me, she was just making it, you know, showing me like Greek life, what it was like and how it was just so much fun. And she was essentially saying like, you can have all of this. All you need to do is pledge the sorority. And to me, I was like, that's a no-brainer. Like, I want all of this. I want to, you know, I want to be known by people. I want to have like a group. I want to like not have to worry about constantly making friends. And, you know, I want to have like a sisterhood. So that's what was so appealing about it. And so she had also, like I said, gotten like maybe like 5 other girls on board in this way. Okay. They were all like similar to me, where they were just, you know, like looking for sisterhood. It's funny because like if someone did a study on this, they were all, I think like all of them except for one were only children.
Really?
Yeah, so
I'm
it's
an
funny.
only child too. So
are you?
Yeah.
So you know what I mean. Like, you know, you're just kind of like seeking.
It's intriguing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You're like seeking like sisterhood kind of. And so we all became like, you know, she introduced us to each other, and she was like, you guys are going to be our pledge class for the spring of 2016. So I was like, okay, great. Like, I'm so excited because I went away to college in 2015.
Okay.
So the first semester I just spent like having a time and stuff like that. And then at the beginning of the spring semester, that's when I decided to pledge.
And was she living in the dorms, or was there like a house that she was in?
So she was living in a house downtown. She was like, I think she was a senior. But
is that like a thing where like everyone in a sorority lives in one house, or no?
So that's what I thought when I went to college. I thought that there would be like a fraternity row like you see in movies.
Right, yeah.
And TV shows. And it wasn't like that there at all. It was what happens is like there's lots of sororities and fraternities at that school. What they do is there's maybe like 5 people to a house downtown, and they will try to like rent like 4 or 5 houses for like all of the upperclassmen to live in. And I guess it works out because when they like throw parties, they alternate houses.
Okay.
So it doesn't make any one house like too like hot.
And I'm sure maybe there are some schools where if it is set up like that, they might have that kind of thing where a lot of them will live in one house. And like, but I feel like that probably makes more sense. Is like that would be more normal. Like if there's multiple and then that's the non-movie version.
It's funny because it's like it's even harder to explain this situation. Yeah. Because, you know, like a lot of schools, like huge universities, they have like a fraternity row where they have like a house mom or something like that.
Really?
Yeah. And like have you seen like all the discourse about like Bama Rush and stuff? There's like a whole like conspiracy about like University of Alabama, like sorority rush, and like I don't know.
My best friend went there. I'll have to ask her.
Yeah. Why do I feel like she kind of was? Maybe knowing her, she was in a sorority. I'll have to ask her. Yeah, she would know. Like it's like a whole thing. But this is very different because it's a lot less formal. It's a lot more like like dirty there. Like it's just like it's like a dingy like place. Right. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's like in upstate New York. It's like cold. It's like, you know, but the university is so huge that it makes it like a huge like college hotspot type thing. Okay. So anyway, so I was introduced to my pledge sisters, and we became like really fast friends. And I remember we were introduced at the end of the fall semester in 2015, and we had like that month break or something before we would go back for the next semester, and we were going to pledge together. So the girl who was trying to recruit us, I had heard about sorority hazing. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm missing a big part right now. So you're not allowed, like the university has rules. You're not allowed to pledge a sorority as a first semester freshman. You have to be a second semester freshman or on. And there are only like certain sororities that are sanctioned by the university. So like unsanctioned sororities and fraternities are organizations that have gotten in trouble for something. This could be like they got in trouble for not paying dues. They got in trouble for not like completing requirements that were required by like their Greek like headquarters or something like that. But at this school, for the most part, it was sorority and fraternity hazing that they called it, like got kicked off of the campus for.
Okay.
So this sorority that this girl was trying to talk me into pledging was an unsanctioned sorority. But she was very much like, you know, this is only temporary. We have all these sisters that, you know, pledged above ground. That's what it's called. So they're like a sanctioned sorority would be above ground, an unsanctioned sorority would be underground. So, you know, she was like, we have all these amazing sisters who pledged above ground, and, you know, we we don't haze, but they had gotten in trouble for hazing. Okay. And she's like, you know, somebody like ratted on us. It was a lie. Like, you know, she just giving me like the runaround.
Yeah, convinced you.
And, you know, 18-year-old me was like, well, you know, like, I'm sure it's fine.
You
like,
wouldn't know any better. Like, the only thing you're going to do is take someone's word. Like, you just got there.
Exactly. So I was like, you know, I'm sure that it's going to be fine. And even if they do haze, like, what could they possibly do?
Right.
You know, like, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'll be fine. And I really want this. So I think a lot of times when you really want something, you just kind of smooth it over in your mind. Yeah. And you're like, I'm going to make it work, like, no matter what.
Yeah, you make it seem better than it is.
Right. Exactly. So, so this sorority was underground. It was not like I wasn't pledging through the school. There was no like school official like overseeing the process or checking up on us or knowing that we were pledging this sorority. But again, like all that mattered to me was the social part of it. So I was like, well, if we don't do stuff in relation to the school, what does it even matter? You know, I'll still be able to go to these parties and have a good time and, you know, all that. So, just to go back to in between like the fall semester and the spring semester, at the end of the fall semester, I met the girls I would be pledging with. So we had kind of gotten close over the break because a lot of us lived on Long Island. And then when we came back for the spring semester, we were, we were allowed to like just like relax and party for like a week. And then we would start pledging. So the attitude of the sisters in the sorority was like literally like night and day. Like the day we started pledging, it was like, we're not your friend. We don't like you guys. And you need to like earn our respect. And everything became extremely intense. And, you know, we're like, oh, it's like an act or whatever, you know, like.
Was this like a meeting? Like, what? I'm like envisioning you guys lined up. You know what I mean? Like standing there.
So they called us to a house downtown.
Okay.
And they were like, you know, you guys have to be here by like 8 p.m. or whatever. Okay. And you have to, they were giving us like these strange like rules. You have to sit down like on the floor, like cross-legged, close your eyes, and you have to like, I think it was you have to like line up in a line based on your height. That's what it was. And so,
and then they were like literally telling you guys like, we don't like you type of thing.
So we got there, and you know, we're so used to like having a good time with these girls. We know them. We've known them for so long, and you know, we're like expecting like this to be like some type of like ceremony or like a joke or something like that. And these girls all come in and like we went to the house, and the house was like empty. And so we did as instructed, and we sat down in a line with like our legs crossed in the dark. We were like, what's going on right now? And the girls come in, and they give us like, this one girl gives us this speech, and she's like, we're not your friend, like you're not, and for the next like until you guys cross. So cross is when you get into the sorority. They're like, until you guys cross, you're not one of us. We don't like you guys. And they just going on and on, being like saying like degrading things, being like mean. And we were all just like very confused. Yeah. Because we were like, what's happening right now? Like, this is weird. And they're like, if you guys don't want to be part of this, you can drop right now. But we're just going to let you know. If you drop is basically when you say, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't. I'm not interested. I want to go back to living a normal life. If you guys drop, you will be absolutely blacklisted by every single person in Greek life. The fraternities are not going to fuck with you. No other sorority is going to want you because you already pledged another one and you dropped because you couldn't handle it. So just expect that, you know, you're never, ever going to be let into another party ever again. You're never going to be, you know, be able to, like, people are going to see you on campus and they're going to know what you did. And they were just trying to make it seem extremely intimidating. Yeah. Like
you had no other option at that point.
Right. And so we're like, oh, okay, like, you know, I don't really even see, you know, why we would drop, right? But of course, you know, they're trying to make you like, they're trying to intimidate you with it. And so after that, you know, they were like, get up and clean the whole house. And we're like, okay, like, for real? And, you know, of course, like, again, we think that we know these girls because we've been, you know, partying with them, talking candidly with them. We know things about their life. And, you know, just imagine when you meet a girl who becomes your friend and, you know, you share your life with her and she shares her life. And all of a sudden, it's like she's telling you what to do. And it's like you have to earn, you know, like you have to earn like, you have to prove something to her. And it's like very bizarre. So we were like, okay, I guess we'll clean the house. Like, what do you want done? And they start like bossing us around and telling us, you know, how we need to, like literally, like I'm talking like scrub the grout with like a toothbrush type of cleaning. And how we're doing their dishes, and it's very strange because it's such a shift and it's very confusing, and we're all just kind of like, okay, this is just like probably like a joke, or you know what they have to do for some reason because it's part of their traditions. In the next couple weeks though, it became like insane. Like there were so many different things. Each day we'd have to be downtown by 8:00. We'd have to, like I said, sit in the dark room, cross-legged in the dark. And they would come in, you know, we don't know how long we're going to be waiting there. Sometimes we're waiting there for like 15 minutes. Sometimes we're waiting there for like an hour. And we would have to just like, I don't know, just like do whatever they said. And these tasks became increasingly like strange, like bizarre, like
So
dangerous.
it started with the cleaning, and then like what were the other ones?
So it started with the cleaning, and then it would eventually be like, you need to address us as sister XYZ. So like whatever their first and last name was. You need, like, I remember we would have to like do skits, like make up dances, like sing for them, and all just so that, you know, we would basically, they would get to like degrade us and like make fun of us. And then it started with like, they would start like screaming at us and like insulting us and calling us bad names. They would make us like go to like the fraternities, like to do errands. And then I remember there was a scavenger hunt, which I think is like a common tradition in a lot of different sorority and fraternity, like hazing rituals, where we would have to like find things like all around the city of Albany that were either like hidden or just like things that they would get creative and make up. And it was the reason it was like confusing for an 18, 19-year-old girl is because some of these things, like, it all seems like a joke and it's all kind of like funny, but it's also very degrading and confusing, and you're like, why am I even doing this at one point, you know? But then you're too scared to drop out of it because you're so scared that, you know, your social life will be like, first of all, I did this all for nothing, and your social life is going to be like dead after this, you know? So the tasks continued to get like more ridiculous, and then it went to exercising. So it was like, you guys are fat, you need to exercise. They called them cals or calisthenics, and they would make us like, if we said or did something that they didn't like, and I mean, it wasn't just like, you know, it would be anything at all. Like, they would make up reasons, you know, for things that we would have to do. It would be like, drop to the ground and give me like 10 push-ups, 20 push-ups, you know, 40 sit-ups, whatever it was. And we would have to keep going until they said to stop. So, you know, it was, at that point I was like, okay, well, I guess it's a good thing that I am kind of in shape from high school. But then it got like more dark. So I remember halfway through the pledge process, they were like, you guys need to, you know, line up in the basement with the blindfold on. So every day it was just getting more like intense.
And how long did this go on for?
It would go on until they felt, well, each day it would start at around like 7 or 8 p.m.
Okay.
And then it would go on until the girls like went to sleep. And we were in any given house, like they would send us to different houses, because like I said, there was like 3 or 4 different houses that they had downtown. So you know, we'd have to buy stuff for them, we'd have to bring them things, we'd have to like run errands for them. You're basically like a slave, you know? And if they had parties, sometimes we'd have to like show up to the parties and kind of like assist them with things, and stay there until they said we could like go home.
Okay.
And of course, you know, Greek life and fraternities and sororities at that school were very like, you like, if you're in it, you know. So it wasn't strange for other fraternities to see like sorority pledges. It wasn't strange for sororities to see fraternity pledges doing ridiculous things, like walking around with like marker all over their face, you know, looking like a fool, like just being degraded in public or things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, I mean, this was a long time ago, so I'm doing my best to remember like the specifics and stuff. But
and then like at this point with the blindfolding in the basement, how many days in was that?
Maybe like 3 weeks.
Oh wow, so it was like weeks of this.
Yeah. This wasn't just like a couple days. The pledge process is meant to be like 8 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Of them just basically making you do whatever they say.
Exactly.
Okay.
You're like a slave. You need to like do whatever it is that they're asking you, no matter how crazy it is.
And just take all the
right
degrading comments along the way.
Right, exactly. And if you refuse or you do something wrong or you're late for something, you might not suffer, but your whole pledge class will suffer.
I think I'd kick somebody in the throat.
Yeah, it was a very
go in there.
It was very
that
intense.
Is crazy.
Yeah, it was extremely crazy. It was very intense. It was so, like, looking back on it, it's such a bizarre thing, but what I'm trying to get at is like every fraternity and sorority at this school and at most schools do this. Okay. So like, because, you know, I had friends from high school who, you know, went to different schools and they all said it's the same thing. And I can't stress enough how it's so normalized. It's like this.
It's a power thing.
Yeah. It's like this life and world underground that like no one else understands or sees unless you're joining an organization, and it becomes so normalized like to you. Yes. Yeah. It's and I'll get further into that. It is probably the closest I will ever come to joining a cult. I'm so serious. So so this was 3 weeks in. They had us maybe even a little bit more, like a little bit further into it. But they had us like line up in the basement, and they would they told us to put blindfolds on, and they had us, they would scream at us. They would take their flashlights on their phones, and they would come up to us while we had like a blindfold on. And it wasn't like a sleep mask blindfold. It was like a bandana. So you could kind of see through it. So like you're in the dark, you're freezing cold, and you are being screamed at by like 30 girls. I'm not even kidding. They would round up the whole sorority and bring them to the basement of this house, and they're shining a light in your eyes like through a blindfold, and they're screaming at you, degrading you, telling you that you're worthless and that they don't even like want you in their sorority, and all of these things that are like so cruel, like and you know, you're like, of course you're thinking to yourself, why am I doing this? But then the thing that stops you from leaving is you're like, well, they're gonna blacklist me. And it really is like such a cult, and once you're in it, you understand that it really is. And so you're like, well, I'm not gonna drop, because they really will. Like, you believe that they will, and they will.
Did you ever have a thought while they were doing this to you of like, wait, when I make it through this, like, then I'm gonna have to be doing what they're doing?
1,000%. Okay. And I swore to myself, I was like, I am never ever gonna do this to any other girl. Like, I'm a Cancer, okay? I'm very sensitive. Mm-hmm. Right. And I just like could not picture myself like being cruel to other girls, like for any reason, like not in this way. It's so intense. Like the things that they say to you are so cruel. They're personal, they're cruel, they're just like terrible. And you're so impressionable at that age. And so you're like, is this true? Is this what people like think of me? Like is this what all of them think of me? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so it really like does a number on your confidence, and it confuses you, and it really manipulates you. And again, it really is like a cult. And I was 1,000% thinking, I can't believe like that they do this, and I'm not going to be able to do this.
Right. Because I was going to say, it's like you could almost convince yourself like, okay, if I can just keep getting through this, but then it's like you never really get through it, because then it's like then you're on the other side of it and you're still not happy on that side.
Exactly. So, okay, I'll get into that.
Okay.
I wanted to mention that at this time, like between, I want to say like 2010 and 2015, there was, for some reason, and I don't know if this was just in New York or like the tri-state area or something, but there was like this weird like influx of like hearing cases on the news about sorority and fraternity hazing and people getting in trouble for them for doing that. Mm-hmm. But more specifically, and this is horrible, fraternity brothers like hazing their pledges until they died. So it would be like either alcohol poisoning, somebody fell down the stairs and hit their head somehow, things like that.
Yeah.
And there was a weird like influx at that time, and I remember my mom watching it on the news and being like, oh my God, that's horrible. Like, how tragic. I mean, like, these kids are 18, 19 years old and their parents are grieving, you know what I mean? Because they wanted a social life.
Yeah.
And I do remember like hearing that and being like, oh my God, that's awful. But sororities don't do that. Like, you know what I mean? They would never put you like in danger like that. Like, guys are just more hardcore. They do stupid things. You know what I mean? But like I said, there was a weird like influx in those cases. I remember hearing it on like the news. So just to go back to being in the basement with these girls like screaming at you, like degrading you, saying horrible shit. So it was like and this became every single night. So it was like a couple nights of that. And then after a couple nights, it became like even more intense. They would make you do like calisthenics, like scream at you, tell you you're fat or whatever. And, you know, then the next thing after that was they would get buckets of ice cold, like freezing cold water. And I mean, this is like upstate New York, like Albany, like in, I think it was like February. And they would make you like do these exercises. And as you're doing the exercises, they were just pouring this like freezing cold water on you in the basement where it's even colder. And you're just like freezing and you're miserable and they're screaming at you. And this was for like hours. It could be like, you know, 2 or 3 hours. They would just take turns. Like, some of them would go upstairs because there were so many of them. So, you know, it was just horrible. And then after the freezing cold water, that was like a couple nights of that. And then there was like rotten food. That was the next thing. So they would dump like rotten food all over us, like, and it wasn't just like if you didn't do something or if you did it wrong. They were just screaming at you. Again, you're lined up in the basement with a blindfold. They're just screaming at you, like throwing things at you, throwing eggs at you, like rotten eggs, like pouring shit all over you. And it smelled so awful. And it's like, what if I'm like wearing my Uggs? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, all of your clothes are destroyed. I mean, destroyed. And you never know like what's coming next. You don't know what to expect. So at this point, like mentally, you're just like breaking down. The next thing after that, so like again, this was happening every single night. The next thing after that was the houses there are like very old. They have like these outdoor like screened in porches, and they were like, you guys like go home tonight and like pack a bag for like a week or two and come back here, and you're gonna be staying here with us. Like, you're not going back to your dorm. You're living downtown for the next 2 weeks, and the only reason you're gonna go uptown is to go to your classes. So we did as they said, and we all packed a bag and we went down there, and they made us sleep on the porch every single night. Like, in like, I'm trying to remember, I think one of my pledge sisters for some reason had like a sleeping bag, but the rest of us, we just like laid down like a fleece blanket, and we were just like sleeping on the fucking porch in the middle of February, like in upstate New York.
Yeah, that's terrible.
It was like, literally, it was like
torture.
Yeah, it was like torture. And I just remember being like, I have no idea like how I'm even gonna like get through the night. Like, I'm freezing to death. Like, I'm freezing. I can't do this anymore. Like, and it was just awful. It was just terrible. I really don't even know how I got through that. I think I just like hung in there. I would like warm up like my socks on like the like radiator inside, and then I'd like bring them out. I was wearing like, I don't even know, like 4 layers. Like, we were all wearing like 4 layers. And one of the pledge sisters I had, like, she found this heater, or maybe she brought it from her dorm or something, and she would like she plugged it in inside, and she brought it like to the door to like where the porch is, and like we would all like fight over the heater.
Yeah.
And it was just extremely traumatizing. Like,
I'm sure I wouldn't have made it through.
Yeah. And again, looking back, I'm just like, what the hell was I thinking? Like, who cares about a social life? Why was I sleeping on the fucking porch? You know? Like, but of course, even you're that age, you don't see it that way. Yeah. And clearly they didn't see it that way either. None of them dropped out. They were all just like in it. Like, we were all just like in it. In conjunction with all this stuff, they would make us like do a lot of like learning. So this is beside all of the stuff that we do have to, mind you, all of this stuff is going on while I have like class. You know what I mean? And I'm supposed to be doing my homework and things like that. And it was so hard to manage. I wasn't even going to my classes. I wasn't doing any of my work. Like, I was literally just trying to survive, and it was awful. It was just terrible. So basically they had us, in addition to our schoolwork that we were supposed to be doing, they had us like learn all of this history about the sorority. They would quiz us. So sometimes when we were in the basement and they were like hazing us, they would like quiz us on like the information we were supposed to know about the sorority. We would have to know all of the lineages, which is basically when you're in a sorority, you get a big sister. Your big sister has a big sister. They have a big sister. You have to know the first and last names of those girls going back like, I don't even know, maybe like 12 or 15 like pledge classes. So it's a crazy amount of information. It's impossible to know this, but you're so scared into learning it that you're just like, okay. You know? And honestly, there are names that I still remember to this day that I'm like, this is useless information.
Yeah, they ingrain it in your brain though.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's like crazy. I remember we're sleeping on the porch, and at that point, we were like close to like crossing. So I remember the next and really like the last like really intense thing that we had to do was again, every night we get lined up in the basement. They lined us up, and they would be like, okay, like they're screaming at us. They'd be like, fall on your face. And you're like, what? What do you mean? And they're like, literally put your hands by your side and fall on your body, like fall on your face. And we were just confused, like, and they're like screaming at us to do it. So they make you like flop on the floor like a fish. Like, you literally fall down on the front side of your body, but you react like it's like a normal human reaction to put your hands up so that you don't hit your face and break your nose. And so if we did that, they would like scream at us, and of course we're gonna do that because like no one's gonna break their face. We were like all like bruised up, and like we had to do this every night. And then they started putting like things on the floor that we had to fall on, and like I remember it was like potato chips, and then I feel like they put something else on.
Fucking Legos.
Probably.
That's like the worst thing, like stepping on Legos or something.
Oh my God. Whatever it was
painful.
Wildly painful. Yeah. And of course it's already painful because you're like you're
right.
bruised. Like you're bruised up from the night before, and you're getting awful sleep. It's literally torture. It's literally fucking torture. And then I remember at some point we crossed, and it was just all over. And it was like,
he liked you again.
Yeah, they liked us again.
Was it like a switch like that? Like as soon as you guys crossed, they were fine with you?
Yep, they're fine with you. And they're like, well, we didn't mean any of the things we said. And they're like, you know,
we just had to do it.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And
That's
they're
crazy.
reflecting back on like all of the specific moments, and they were like, it's just it's the most cult-like thing in the world, and it's happening everywhere and no one knows it.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. I mean, if it's anything like my pledging experience, then it is actually like that.
Hey guys, this show and episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/insane and get on your way to being your best self. As we step into 2024, we are all looking for ways to be the absolute best version of ourselves. Whether we are trying to work out more, eat better, work harder in life, all of these things are resolutions that people have, but something that I would like to suggest to you all to implement into this new year is to start therapy, start talking to somebody, because there is no way to better challenge yourself and strengthen your mindset, your mental, your emotional health than with therapy. I think that a lot of times when people hear therapy, they think that they need some sort of intense trauma or something needs to be going wrong in their life, and that is not true at all. I think that it is so important to always have someone to speak to and open up to that has a completely unbiased opinion on your life. I am somebody that personally never did therapy growing up. I never thought that I needed it. And I even tried going to a couple therapists in person a few times and didn't really enjoy it, didn't find to get much out of it. But I then heard about BetterHelp online therapy, and I thought, why not give it another try? I'm getting older now. I'm trying to learn better coping mechanisms, set some boundaries in my life. And like I said, just have somebody to really open up to and listen to me and to talk to. So that being said, if you are somebody that is looking to start therapy, you should definitely consider to give BetterHelp a try. In my opinion, the best part about BetterHelp is that it is entirely online, and it is designed to be convenient to your schedule and super flexible. All that you have to do to get started is fill out a brief questionnaire, and you will be assigned with a professional licensed therapist. And if for any reason you don't hit it off with that therapist or you want to switch, you are able to switch and do so at any time. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit betterhelp.com/insane today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/insane. Now back to today's episode.
So again, I don't know this until I'm a sister, because as a pledge, you're completely in the dark about everything.
Right.
Like, but there are rules to hazing and quote unquote tradition and the process, that's what they call it. And so basically the pledge class before ours, so the girls who most recently crossed, they are not allowed to haze until, you know, the class after them crosses over.
Okay.
Then the girls after them, they can haze them and do whatever they want. There, honestly, I can't remember because there's so many rules and it was so long ago, but there's a hierarchy and it goes like by seniority. So it depends how many semesters you've been in the sorority, and that tells you how hard you're allowed to haze. It restricts some of the things you're allowed to say, some of the things, the favors and errands you're allowed to ask the pledges to do. And when you're pledging, the first night that you're pledging, so that first night that they had us like sit in the dark room, they explain to you that you're gonna have 2 pledge moms. I think there's 3 pledge moms. One of them is nice to you and the other 2 are mean to you. So while you're going through this process, which makes it even more confusing for you and harder to drop out, is you have the girls who had just crossed being nice to you. You have one of your pledge moms being nice to you, and the other 2 are the meanest to you. So they're the most cruel. They ask for the most favors. They essentially like call the shots on your process. They make decisions. There's so much. I mean, I can't even remember. There's so much that happens during the process. They have events at night where they make you like, they split you guys up, and they try to get you to turn on your pledge sisters. And if you do it, you're wrong. If you don't do it, you're wrong. And either way, you get punished by something, you know, they do something awful. And so again, the manipulation tactics are like hard at work, because you have some of the girls being nice to you and giving you sympathy and empathy, and then the rest of them are like being terrible to you. Anyway, so that just adds to, you know, the manipulation. I think that's just worth mentioning. So after we crossed, they throw you like a huge party, and I think they make you drink. Okay. There was one event where they made us drink. They like forced us. They buy you like a bottle, and they just like kind of like encourage you to drink like hard, like, you know what I mean? And until you're like either passed out, or you're just like you're throwing up, or you fall asleep or whatever. And then after that, you're just like in, and everything's great, and you're living your life. And you're like, was it worth it? Like, it feels worth it afterward, but the trauma from all of those things, like, is insane. I mean, they use like military tactics, like to all for what? For like a social group, like an underground sorority. Like the organization doesn't even do anything, you know? They're just like you can party with anyone, you know? So, okay, now we're in the sorority. They have like Greek week. They have like all these events. And we're going, and like everyone like knows, like all the fraternities know that like you guys just crossed, and like everyone's like so nice to you, and it makes it feel very worth it again. But when you reflect back, you're like, that was insane. Like, for what? What did I do that for? So then it was the end of the semester, and I remember like looking at my grades and being like, oh my God, like this is so bad. I didn't fail anything, but you know, it's like you need to maintain you need to at least be getting like B's and C's. Right. So that the school doesn't contact your parents and is like, hey, like we're putting you on like some type of probation or something. And so I was like, okay, like I'm going to have to like figure this out next semester, because now that I'm in the sorority, I don't know what's going to be expected of me. There's just thinking about how much those girls, like how much of their time they're giving to the pledge process. Like, I don't know how they had time to do anything else ever. So I remember like this was 2016, the summer came, and like we all like left Albany and went to Long Island, like, you know, my whole pledge class or whatever, because we all lived there mostly. And we like hung out all summer. We had a great time, and, you know, everything was all good. And then when the new semester started, we had like our first like chapter meeting. That's what it's called. When you have like a sorority, like group meeting, and every sister is like required to be there. They call it like chapter. And they were like, okay, we're going to explain to you guys what your job is. So everyone needs to pick a job. There's like, there's social, there's like rush, which is like those two. I'm pretty sure you are basically like organizing mixers. Mixers are like when you have a party with another, like with a fraternity, and you have to pick themes for them. And all of this is organized so that you can recruit other girls. So that's essentially like the purpose of it, is you're trying to beat out other sororities so that you can make your sorority look the most appealing to all of the rushes, the girls who are coming in, who you're looking to recruit. Got it. And so like as they're explaining this to me, like I said earlier, like it's very like predatory. Mm-hmm. Like they have you look up like girls' Instagrams before, like their social medias. You're like essentially like poaching them kind of. So you know what these girls look like that you want. Because you joined this like incoming freshman like Facebook group. Like that's what they had us do, as like join those groups so that we could like seek out who are the prettiest girls, who are the girls who are, where do they come from? Like, do their families have money? Stuff like that. And so you're seeking out these girls, you're like looking for, your friend, requesting them on Instagram. And you're already like getting a jump start so that once they come to the university, they move in, you can kind of be like, hey, like, I know you, and persuade them to join the organization. So they tell us that, they assign us that job. Like, we're mostly all supposed to be like rushing girls. And there were like other jobs that I'm sorry, I can't like remember that, involve like being the one to like purchase alcohol, being the one to like make the drinks, like the jungle juice, stuff like that. But mostly I remember like having to rush girls. That was like the job. And they told us that when these girls pledged this next semester, since you guys had just crossed, you're not allowed to haze them. The only time that you're allowed to haze them is the last like couple, I think it was the last night, but like right before they cross, because that's like the most intense, like horrible night. And that's the only time, because they have to feel as though like you've turned on them. And like that's going to make them feel like awful. You know what I mean? Like that's going to make them hit like rock bottom and like then
break, yeah.
Right, exactly. So those were like the rules for us. But they really, really pushed it. Like the upperclassmen like really pushed us to recruit these girls. And they're like, we have to work twice as hard because we're like an underground organization. We weren't able to like get back on campus yet because they had gotten in trouble for hazing like previously. And basically they were saying like, we have to work like twice as hard because these other sororities have more to offer. And I remember we had like all of these like mixers. We were like making friends with these girls. That was like the only thing that was like the most important thing that we had to do. Eventually we got like a group of girls together and we made their pledge class. Like it was like a group of like 8 or 7 or something, which is like pretty big compared to like most. Even 6 was big for like us because the process is so hard that girls like don't make it through. And so these girls were pledging. I think there was like 7 or 8 of them. And then a bunch of them dropped because they were just like, this is way too intense. Like this isn't what we were expecting. Because again, like, you reel them in and then you just like, you have to just like drop this bomb on them when they start like pledging. Right. And so as a newly crossed member, like our job was to really like oversee and learn like what the older girls were doing and the upperclassmen. And again, we weren't allowed to haze. We were supposed to like help them, be there for like moral support and stuff like that. So these girls were going downtown every night and the upperclassmen were like really, really going hard on them. Like even harder than they went on us. And like just in terms of humiliation, like they were drawing on their faces. They were taking like these really compromising like videos of them and stuff like that. There was never any like sexual things. I think that's like a big misconception that well, I mean, I can't speak for any other sororities, but for us, there was never any like sexual requirement. Like we didn't have to do anything like that. Yeah. It was more so like degradation and like humiliation and stuff. And I remember there were only like 4 girls left in this pledge class at the end of the process. And I really wasn't around for most of it because I was just doing other things. Like I was going out every night. I mean, I was going out Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I really wasn't doing like any work. Like I was barely going to my classes. I was sleeping every day until like, I don't even know, like 1 p.m. Like my sleep schedule was so fucked up. And again, this is so like normalized because all the other girls in the sorority are doing the same thing. They're all like, sleeping this late. They're going out until 4 a.m. They're, drinking way too much, like taking pills, like stuff like that, like just partying way too hard. Like, and it just catches up to you. I mean, I remember feeling like the semester that I got arrested, which was this semester, the fall of 2016, I was so depressed. Like my brain chemistry was just so off. Like I was like struggling to get a grip on my grades. Like I was just had prioritized like my social life like way too much, and it was just like showing. And you know, just everything had become about like my social life. And so again, I wasn't really around to see these girls, but like to see them pledge and stuff. But I remember the couple times that I did see them, like I remember GroupMe was a big thing back then, like that app GroupMe. And it was like we had like so many different sorority group chats like with different members in them and stuff. They would like send videos of the girls and what they were doing to them, and like they would like laugh about it. And at this point I was just very like indifferent, because you almost like forget the trauma of what happened, because you're like having a good time and you're just like doing other things. But you also are just like, well, I don't really want to be like mean or anything like that, but you also just don't care, because you're like, well, I did it, I got through it, it's fine, they'll be fine. Right. You know what I mean? Which is a horrible way to think about it. And so after that, they were coming to the end of their pledge process. So there was a requirement that we had to be there the night that they crossed, because we were supposed to haze them. And they're like, you have to haze them. You literally have to. That's a requirement for being in this organization. If you guys choose not to haze them that night, you're disassociated from the organization. And so it's kind of like, well, I have to, because I worked so hard for this, and even though it's destroying my life, I'm having so much fun. You know what I mean? And okay, so that night came, and the house they were living in at the time in downtown Albany, that they would always haze the girls in, because one of the houses always had to have a basement. So how it works is like the houses are typically 2 stories, and for the most part, I remember there were like 3 or 4 bedrooms on the first floor and 3 or 4 bedrooms on the second floor. A lot of times, if for some reason they couldn't get the whole house rented, because maybe girls had already rented upstairs or downstairs, but it was in a really great location, they would only rent half the house. Like the sorority members would only rent half the house. So I remember this one house was in a good location. That's why they had rented it, but they only had the bottom floor and the basement, and the girls upstairs who weren't part of the sorority, they had the upstairs and the attic. They had a separate entrance. So the night that this pledge class after me was crossing came, and again, we were required to be there, otherwise we would essentially like forego our membership in the sorority. And we went there. We were like in the basement, like watching them get hazed by the upperclassmen and stuff like that. And a lot of like basically when they require you to haze them, you're really just yelling at them. You're just screaming at them. You're making them do like exercises. And I think if you want, you can like crack eggs over their head. You could like pour stuff on them, stuff like that. So all of my pledge sisters went, I think, except for one. And after they went, they would just like go back upstairs to like relax and stuff. And this was it was like it had been my turn, so I went, and then one other girl, and there were only like a couple of us left in the basement with the pledges, and all the other girls were upstairs. So this had been going on for hours. Like we had these girls in the basement for like, I don't know, like 4 hours, 3 hours. And it was like 11 o'clock on like a Wednesday night, you know what I mean? Or 12, or honestly, maybe it was even later. It might have been like 1 or something. And I remember that my pledge sister was in the middle of like yelling at these girls, and all of a sudden, like we couldn't hear anything because the way that they had set it up is that the first floor they blast music so that the people outside of the house and upstairs can't hear what's going on in the basement, because again there's a lot of like screaming. So this was part of like the process, or this was part of the like the way that they set things up. Like for some reason this was all very thought out. But obviously it wasn't thought out well enough, because all of a sudden my pledge sister's like yelling at these girls, and we just hear like, everybody put your hands up. And they were like, all of a sudden there were people behind us like screaming at us. And we were all like so confused. So we turn around and there's like 10 police officers like behind us, and we're like, what the fuck is happening? Like, and so we all just like put our hands up. They have their like guns drawn and everything. And they're like, what is going on here? Like, oh, what is happening? And we're like, what is happening? Like, here, like, what are you doing here? And they cuff us all, and they take us down even further downtown, right? Because this is like downtown, but the police station is further downtown. So they take us downtown, and all of us are just like, have no idea what's going on. Like, we're all very frazzled. Like, we're like, what the fuck is happening? It turns out that hazing is a misdemeanor in the state of New York. And we're at the police station for like hours, and they're just talking to all of us like individually. And they're like, what is happening? Like, what were you guys doing? And I didn't know what to say. I had no idea what to say. I was just like, we're doing a sorority ritual. And they're just like, it was the most bizarre thing. Like, because I was just so frazzled. Like, I was like, I didn't know whether to feel like I was about to be like in really big trouble, or if this was just like a laughable thing. And I didn't even know why they were arresting me. Right. If they were arresting me, they like read us our rights when they had cuffed us and everything. And I was just so confused. So they took us downtown. They were questioning us like individually, and they eventually got it sorted out, and they figured out what was going on. One of the girls who was a pledge, she had an allergic reaction to a dairy product. Again, when they were like dumping things on us when we were pledges, it was like bad food. So I don't know if they dumped bad food on her and she had some type of like, she got a rash. It wasn't like a life-threatening thing, but she had broken out with something. So they charged all, like, I think there was 7 of us that they arrested. There were 7 sorority members and like the 4 pledges. And obviously they got let go because they were like victims. And we were charged with hazing, like 3 counts of hazing and 1 count of like endangerment or something. This was a while ago. So. Yeah. And because this girl, I guess they charged us with a more aggressive like offense because this girl had broken out and she was having an allergic reaction. So so all of a sudden, like, you know, we're in this like police, this like I'm sorry,
police station.
Yeah, we're in a police station, and they, after they questioned us separately, they put us back together, and they were like, you guys, like, I remember them like being really aggressive with us. They were like yelling at us. They were being really mean to us. They were scaring the shit out of us. But I remember being like, this is just going to blow over. There's no way that this is going to be like a real crime. Like, you know what I mean? And it wound up definitely being a real crime. I remember this one woman, female cop, she was like, you know, you guys are going to be like all over the news tomorrow, right? And I was like, no. What are you talking about? I'm like, she's just trying to scare us. These are like police tactics, like things like that. And she was right, because I was 19. I had no idea how police and media work. I had no idea. I had never gotten arrested for anything. I'd never really done anything like substantially wrong. I remember they had let us go after they charged us because there was no bail or anything like that, but they said we had to appear in court the next morning, like really early. So they had us downtown for like maybe like 3 hours just questioning all of us, you know, doing paperwork, stuff like that. And the police station was like freezing. That's all I remember, is just being so cold. I just want to go home and like go to sleep. Like, I had no idea that this was a punishable offense.
Yeah,
like
as serious as it was.
Yeah. And so they let us go. We went home and we got like 2 hours of sleep, and then we had to go back. We had to be at court in the morning. So we went to court the next day. And this was the first time that I had actually seen like reporters, and I was like, what the hell are they doing? Like me and my two pledge sisters who were like also in it, you know, they had gotten arrested too. We were like staring at them and we were like, what the hell are they taking pictures of? And they were taking pictures of us because we were about to be like all over the news. And I was like we were like running away from these cameras, like into the courthouse, and they were like formally charging us. That's what it was.
Did other pledge sisters or like the girls above you that hazed you guys, did they get arrested or in trouble too, or just you guys because you were like there?
It was a mix of us. It was whoever was in the basement. So
okay, but other than that, like other girls that were in the actual sorority, they got off. They were fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They got off, like, and it was really just us who were in the basement. I remember like some of the sisters were like, we're hiding in the bathroom upstairs. We had no idea what was going on because this was like a whole event. There were like tons of cop cars on the street. I mean, and this was like other student housing was there. So of course you have all these other students like watching this happen, and they're just like taking us out to the police cars like one by one, and we're like cuffed, and they're like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah. So everyone is like, you know, buzzing about like what is happening right now in the middle of like, you know, downtown Albany. Like, it was so bizarre. And because the only time that the police ever really like show up for anything is if there's a party, you know what I mean? And it's so we wound up finding out that what happened is the girls upstairs heard what was happening downstairs. Like, they heard screaming. It sounded like violent and stuff like that. And they got scared, and it was going on for hours. So they had gotten scared. They weren't affiliated with any sorority. So they were like normal people. Yeah. And they were like, should we like say something? They weren't like really friends with the girls who lived in that house or any of us. Like, we didn't really know them at all. So they just called the cops, I guess. Yeah. Because they didn't know what else to do. And after that, the cops came and they heard the music, but they also heard like all this screaming because it wasn't enough to like drown it out, you know? And it was going on for a long time. So they were knocking on the door, but we couldn't hear them. And the girls who were even in the apartment upstairs, who had gone upstairs, couldn't hear them because of the music. So they kicked in the back door, which led like directly to the basement. Got it. And I guess it was like a right of theirs to enter because they, you know, there could have been something dangerous going on. And that's how they found us like hazing these girls. I remember after we came, like we went to court, we were coming out. Again, these like reporters are like chasing us. It was crazy.
And had you talked to your parents yet?
No, I hadn't said anything to my dad. But I knew that, or my mom or my dad, but I remember that I was like, I'm going to have to say something at some point. I don't know how bad this is yet. So I don't want to tell them anything I don't have to tell them. Maybe this will like blow over. Maybe this will just go away. Like, I was just hoping and praying, and it definitely didn't. It became a huge thing. And I remember like that day I just went home, and after we went to court, and I just slept for like, I don't even know, like 12 hours. And then I remember waking up, and at some point, like after I woke up, this girl who had gotten arrested with me, she woke me up, and she's like, because I was like staying with her just for like that time, and she was like, Monica, like you have to see this, like this is literally like all over the news right now. And this was like the most traumatizing thing out of this whole thing. I mean, not even pledging could have prepared me for the trauma of like public humiliation. And it's such a strange thing to get in trouble for, because it's like a lot of people see it and they're like, oh my God, that's like hilarious, or they're like, that's so stupid, or most people are like, why were you doing that? Like, that's disturbing. You know what I mean? There were like, my mugshot was like all over the place. Like, I remember my uncle in Arizona, he called me at some point and he was like, I saw you on the news.
Oh my God.
It was like a national story for some reason. And it was so sensationalized in the media. And the worst part about it, though, that I have to say is that the police, what they had told the media was not right. They were saying that we were like dumping urine on them. We were dumping like shit all over them and stuff like that. But at the same time, like, it's like, how can I possibly defend myself when, you know, you're caught in a situation like that and you're part of an organization that does that? They kind of did that to you, you know what I mean? Like, obviously they weren't dumping that on us, but like, you know, there's just you don't have like a leg to stand on to defend yourself. And this was blasted like all over the place for like, I don't even know, like maybe like 4 or 5 days. This was like people were like, everyone that I knew was contacting me and they were like, oh my God, like what happened? And I just never wanted to have any type of like attention like that. You know what I mean? I'm very like as much as I love being social and stuff, I'm private. Like whatever I choose to put on social media, like it's like well thought out. Like, you know what I mean? I don't like to go like blasting my shit all over Facebook or whatever. Like this was just so bad for me. Like it was just, this was the worst part of all of it, because it's like, you know, you get arrested for something, you get in trouble, you need to hire a lawyer, like, you know what I mean? But when you have your mugshot on the internet, and there are like articles written about you and your name, which I have a name that's very uncommon, so it's like, you know, there's no way to reverse that, there's no coming back from that, like, and it's like we live in a world where everyone Googles you, you know what I mean? I Google everyone, and if you don't Google people, you should. You know what I mean? So it was just so fucking traumatizing, because now it's like everyone I know thinks that I'm dumping like piss and shit all over
it's just such a negative.
It was just the most insane thing ever. And it was like one of those things where you're like, I literally can't believe this is happening right now. Like, this can't be. So after this girl wakes me up and tells me that this story in like less than 24 hours is literally everywhere, and I'm talking like Long Island is a very small place, so the fact that it was like on News 12, like Long Island, like everyone is seeing that. Like everyone who I know knows, you know what I mean? People from high school know, all of my friends' moms know, my whole family knows. There's no like getting away from it. And it was just like, for some reason, it was a huge story. Just going back to what I said earlier, like at this, like for a couple years, like this topic was like very sensationalized in the media. It was like very like intriguing to people, because they were like seeing what Greek life kind of was, and like how kids were getting hazed, like, you know what I mean, and the things that they would have to do, and of course, like, you know, anything that leaves like a little bit of mystery, I feel like people are drawn to and they're attracted to. They're like, oh, like what's that about? So, you know, that's definitely part of it, why people are interested in knowing, you know, what goes on in these like hazing rituals and Greek life in college, you know. But it was just a huge story. And I just, for that time in my life, like for, I mean, a year after that, probably, I just felt so like disconnected. Like I was so like lost. I was like, I don't even know like what I'm going to do with my life now. Like this is everywhere. So my dad, I remember I called my dad after I knew that it was like in the news, because I was like, it's going to be better if I like tell my parents rather than if they like, you know, see it like themselves, because they will. And I told him, and he was of course like so upset, and he was like I sent you to college to like go get a degree, and like you're doing this, like what are you doing, you know? And my mom was more supportive, like surprisingly, because she was really strict when I was growing up. And you know, she worked for an attorney, and she was like trying to help me and stuff like that. But you know, my dad was just so upset. We had to like get a lawyer. We got like a high profile like lawyer to deal with it, because it like takes on like a thing of its own, like when a story is in the media. And it makes me, honestly, after experiencing this, I'm like, just the inaccuracies, you know, because to me it's my life, and I feel like even though people may be like, well, what does it matter what you're dumping on them? It doesn't matter, you know what I mean? Like it's an awful thing to do. Like you're torturing these girls. Just though, after seeing, you know, what it does to your life and reputation when there's something horrible written about you in the media, I just have such a newfound like empathy for people who are in other situations which are much worse, you know, because this is still something that an employer would maybe see, you know, and laugh at. But it's like people who are accused of murder, people who are accused of, you know, poisoning their spouse, or like, you know what I mean? Like, or abusing their children or something like that. It just really makes you question like how much of it is real. And you know, I was
gonna say too, it kind of sucks because even though you were the one that was caught, like there were so many other people involved.
There were so many other people involved,
higher ups, and not that you know any of the levels per se matter, but at the same time, it's like at one point you were on the other side of it too. Like you were a victim, like one of those victims at one point. And like technically speaking, even though it's wrong, those victims, and what are they, pledges, are trying to become what you are.
Exactly.
So like what, you know what I mean? It's so, that's I think what makes it kind of tough is like, yeah, you're getting in trouble for that, but also like they were there by choice. I mean, not to like blame anybody, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like,
but it just sucks because I feel like I'm sure the articles just completely are like focused on you guys and being the worst of the worst.
For sure. That's exactly how it was. And just so many different things coming together, like that being one of them. The fact that, you know, there were so many other people involved. I didn't do any of the hazing the whole semester. You know what I mean? I was just there. I was essentially just there. You know, I had yelled at the girls like once that night, and it was just like a perfect storm for me. Like it was just all these bad things that kind of came together that formed the situation. And now I just felt like my life was ruined, and I was just so lost. Like I really just had no direction. I was like I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, you know, just the public humiliation and the embarrassment of like of the articles being written, my mugshot being posted everywhere, everyone knowing like what happened, but not knowing the correct details, not knowing the story behind it, not knowing that I went through this too. You know what I mean?
Right. And what are you going to do? Explain it to everybody?
Yeah. Like it was just so crazy. Like, and I just felt so like shorted by life. I was like, oh my God, like I just can't believe this happened.
Right.
And I was so young that I had no idea how to really deal with it correctly. And I think one of the worst things that happened, aside from, you know, that came out of this situation, like the girls who were the upperclassmen who didn't get in trouble, it was like, it felt like everyone just like scattered.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was no sisterhood there.
So after that, like after that whole news thing broke, was that sorority, I'm assuming, done?
Oh yeah, so we were just like done.
Okay.
Everyone in the sorority was done. The pledges, who obviously they're not gonna like lie to the police, so the police got all of the information. They were like, who's in the sorority, who have you been talking to or being hazed by, you know what I mean, like what's the real story, like break it down for us. I mean, they had them come in like 3 times, I think, just to interview them, to see like what actually happened, you know. And so these girls were like telling their story, and the police kind of shared that information with the school. So obviously, you know, the headlines are like Albany sorority like hazing scandal, and so the university like emailed us all right away, and they're like, you know, you're suspended until further notice or whatever. So you
got suspended too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they suspended us like immediately. They were like, we don't need to know like what's going on. We don't need to know like who did what. Like you're all just like suspended. They suspended every single person who was like affiliated with the sorority. Okay. So even the girls who didn't get arrested, they were like, get out. Yeah. And they had like a hearing for us like a couple weeks later. So we all like went into the school, and we were in this huge like conference room, and they had like 3 like judges, and they were trying to determine whether or not we did what we were accused of by the school. So the school was bringing charges against us, like to validate suspension or expulsion, and we had to show up. You could bring an attorney, but it's like, you know, I don't know. I didn't bring one. I just brought my dad. And you know, they were just asking us questions, but it was like a trial. It was like the craziest thing. They do that to other students when they get caught like plagiarizing and stuff like that. But there's so many things that I didn't know until this event happened in my life. So aside from that, you know, I remember I had to come home right after that because, you know, if you're suspended or expelled, you can't live in the dorms. So they had told us like get our shit and leave.
But did you get expelled or just suspended?
We got suspended. Like I got suspended. I think they temporarily suspended all of us until the hearing. Then after the hearing, they would determine whether or not we would be let back into the school, suspended temporarily, or expelled. So, and if you get expelled from a college, you have to disclose it on other college applications, whether you get suspended or expelled. So it's like it makes it harder to go back to school, which sucks. I had to like move all my stuff out, bring everything home, and just kind of wait for the school to make their decision. But I was like, I'm not going back there anyway. Like I think this happened in like November that we got arrested. It happened like the middle of November. Right. So I was like, I'm not going back to finish the semester.
So you didn't even want to?
No.
Okay.
Because I was like, everyone knows what happened.
Right.
This is like a catastrophic event. Like I'm not going back there. What am I going to do there? Just like, you know, and it was just so embarrassing. It was like the girls who weren't involved or didn't want to be involved, girls that had graduated, because they introduce you, like, you know, before and after you cross, they introduce you to the alumni who were in the sorority who will like, come back to visit just to like party and have fun and meet you and stuff like that. All of those girls, like, there was nothing from any of them. They all just like, it was just like everyone scattered after that. Like,
so you would never really talk to any of the other ones?
No, like it was, and it just was so clear to me that I had made such a mistake, honestly.
And like none of these people were actually your friends.
Yeah, no one was ever your friend. Like no one was ever your friend, because if they were, they really wouldn't have been able to do what they did to you in the first place.
Right.
And honestly, like it was just so telling, because again, you're still in that cult mentality where you're like, I'm part of something that other people could never understand. You know what I mean? you think that you're part of something so important. You think that, you know, everyone wants to be in your position, things like that. And that they don't, if they don't understand, and they, you know, they never will.
Yeah.
And it was just so wild to see the lack of support after my life was literally like turned upside down. I hope you understand the gravity of this revelation, because it felt so real.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like I did this for a reason. These girls were my friends. We were sisters for life. They were going to be my bridesmaids.
Right.
You know, the whole nine. Like, and it wasn't like that. It was almost like they didn't want to be associated with you, if knowing like what happened.
And I think too, it's something that you can't really even beat yourself up over, because there's so many people that want to go into a sorority. And I think that movies and shows, they do idolize it a lot, and they make it seem like something that's so fun, and it creates this community, and everybody wants to be a part of a community. And while, yeah, as people, we technically know right from wrong, there are points in our life where we are more naive, and that's not even to make an excuse, but like I said, I think it's important to recognize you were on both sides of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, you wanted to be a part of something, you know, and it's like so many people, I'm sure, have done it or have experienced it. And I'm not one that ever judges, but like, I just feel like it's part of your story. And obviously now you're older, and you know, like, looking back, I would never make that decision again. Even besides like being on the flip side of it, like, I feel like even being the victim of it, like, we kind of look back at when we're at a certain age and we finally found ourselves and we have our friends and our boyfriend and all this stuff. We no longer feel the need to do things like that. But there's a lot of people that do feel the need to do anything to just have that sense of friendship and support. That's all people want.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, honestly, like, I'm sure you understand this, growing up as an only child, it's very possible to exist without other people's validation. And like, if you've been doing it, you're going to be fine. You know what I mean?
And the thing is too, is I think you talking about it not only shares your journey and experience, and obviously hearing it is so interesting and intriguing, but it also kind of serves a purpose that if anybody is thinking about it, they have another opinion. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure that there are some that are fine and good, but then there's a lot that aren't. So it's important to know what that comes with, and to know kind of from like an older and wiser mind that it's not worth it looking back on it. And I think that that's really important, because, I mean, who do you really talk to if you don't know people that have been in one?
Right.
That are like older. Like you said, maybe if you had an older sister that already kind of went through it and was like, nah, don't even waste your time. You never know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know what it is too? I think that there's so many, like, even girls who have joined, and the majority of them who have like made it through school and, you know, graduated, and, you know, whether they talk to those girls still or not, I think that they don't really understand the harm, because those relationships weren't really like put to the test ever. Obviously, like, hazing is not a normal thing to do. Like, you shouldn't have to get hazed if you're, you know, joining a team or, you know, joining an organization or anything like that. But, you know, people who have made it through to the other side, they're like, oh yeah, I was hazed in a sorority in college or whatever it is. But again, those relationships were never put to the test, where it was kind of like, what would happen if an event like this happened, where, you know, you were getting in trouble? Like, how would these girls be there to support me regardless of whether or not there was a risk of, like, you know, they felt like they might get into trouble further or whatever it was, you know what I mean? Like, would they be there to support me when my life is upside down? You know what I mean? And it was just so apparent to me that I had joined like the wrong group of people.
Right. Or,
you know, and of course, if I can go, you know, do it over again, I wouldn't join any group, because they all haze. They really do. And again, it's so normalized in that community. So like, among the fraternities and sororities and their members, like, everyone hazes at that school and at most schools, you know.
It's important, I think, to talk about it too, because there are a lot of stories, unfortunately, where it does lead to death, and people do die. And just because they want to be a part of something so bad. And it's sad because it's so preventable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's
Absolutely.
why it's so important to talk about too.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
And it's sad that people are willing to risk their lives to be a part of something that, like you said, doesn't even actually contain true friends or support.
Yeah. I mean, it just showed itself to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like the true colors of all of these girls who I thought were my friends, to be honest with you. And I mean, there are girls who were like, who, you know, I thought we were like close or had like at least like a relationship. And I mean, I never heard from them again after this happened. I didn't hear from them when it happened. Like, they were like, not like, are you okay? Are you all right? Like, is like, what's going on? Like, how could you possibly like say that's a sisterhood or anything like that? I mean, and not to mention like the things that were being said in the media didn't contain the whole truth, and they were viral like at the time. And so, you know, what I also want to go into is the fact that like this is something that I'm dealing with today still. Like, I mean, this is like 8 years ago now, like almost 10 years ago. Like, I literally will have to deal with this for forever, like, because, you know, it's something that is out there now. And so what happened when we went to court is that we essentially all got our own lawyers. We couldn't like share any lawyers or anything like that, any of the girls who got arrested. But what happened was we all like got community service, and it was kind of like dismissed after that. So it's no longer on our records, which is great. But again, it's still like all over the internet. So it's also just so crazy how we live in a world where like you can have a clean record, but what's out there about you, you know, it's still out there and it matters more. You know what I mean? Yeah. After I came back from school, after I was suspended and I was like awaiting this hearing or whatever, I feel like I just, you know, I did feel really lost, but I think my mind just kind of went into overdrive, and I just started like trying to repair my life like in every way I possibly could. So I enrolled in like a community college on Long Island, and I wound up going there for 2 years. After that, I went to Hofstra, which is a university. And I decided to, like, once I came home that I was going to work because I was like, you know, I need to get a job. I need to like straighten out my life. I need to get a job. I need to go back to school like just as soon as possible before I like lose the you know, ability to like want to go back, because I know that happens to a lot of people. And I was definitely in like a depressive state where I was like, if I don't like push myself right now, like this is just gonna like get worse and worse. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't gonna fix itself. I found a job, and that's just kind of what I've been doing like ever since. And I really just like never looked back. I mean, this whole thing has been like, you know, I think about this all the time because it's out there. I think about what happened and how traumatizing it was. And I think about how one day I'll probably like lose a job that I really want because these things are out there about me, and there's nothing that I can do. I've tried to get it buried. I've tried to get it scrubbed from the internet. There's nothing that I can do. So I also just kind of feel like if I'm not able to do that, I should come on a podcast like yours and just kind of, you know, share my story
and speak about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only like good that I feel like can come from it, because it's not going to go away.
Right. And I think too, like, even if it's not exactly this, I feel like it gives people that reality check of every decision we make, even if we are young and naive, but every decision we make can have an outcome like that, especially nowadays, because everything is so revolved around the internet and social media. And it's important to kind of double think what we do and the decisions that we make. And it's important because it doesn't go away. We can't do anything. It's like, even if you scrub everything, it could somewhere be like somewhere tucked away somewhere.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
And
it happened, you know?
Yeah, and it sucks. And I think that, I mean, we also live in a world on the flip side where you don't have to explain yourself to anybody, and you learned from what happened and you're going to keep it pushing. And yeah, there is a chance that it might prevent you from having a job that you want. I mean, shit, my naked body's online. I can't get jobs that I want. You know what I mean? One day. So it's like, but it's part of life and it's part of our journey. And the thing is I always say everything happens for a reason, and it gives us more knowledge and it gives us more experience. And even though it was a very negative thing and it sheds a negative light, now you're turning it into something so positive. And you're doing everything that you can now, like you said. Like, you're not just saying, oh, fuck it, I did that and I'm walking away from it. Like, it happened. You did your best to turn your life around. And now that you're a little older and wiser, you're able to reflect on it and educate about it, and also hopefully prevent it from happening to someone else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I remember, like, I think it was like maybe a couple, like the first job that I got after I came back from Albany after I was kicked out, essentially. Like, I worked with a girl or a woman, and she had like a daughter who's a teenager. And I remember I told her my story, and she was like, oh my God, like she was just very shocked by it because it had just happened. You know what I mean? And she was like, thank you like so much for sharing this with me, because like this stuff matters to me. Like, I have a teenage daughter who's going to be going to college, and like this is a great thing to like tell her and help her understand. I think the other thing that I got out of this is just kind of being able to really digest the fact that once something happens to you, like, it becomes a part of you.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of things in life don't show us that, and unless you know, we're forced to see it, we don't see it. So this is a great example of how it reminds me that like when something happens to you, it's a part of your life. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of times we go through things or we make bad decisions and we try to kind of like bury them. And it really is just, you know, this is one of those things that just reminds me that you just have to embrace the decisions that you've made and learn from them. And sometimes you have to admit that you made the wrong decision and that you are willing to learn from it.
Yeah, and coming out of something, it can either make or break you.
Yeah.
So at that point, like, there's nothing you can do to change the past. And you shouldn't regret anything, because it's part of life, and regret just leads us to spiraling nonstop, which isn't going to help anything. So I think allowing it to help you and help others is the best that you can do.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly. That's the only good that can come out of this.
For sure. No, and you did such a great job, seriously, of explaining yourself. And I want you to know, like, I am not, like I said, I really am not somebody that judges anything that anybody does. And I think that it's important that you don't ever, I don't know if you do or not, but that you don't beat yourself up over it, because it's something, like, everyone does things in their life that they're not proud of.
Right.
It's fine.
Yeah, you know, I think I definitely learned that on my own too, because there was so many times, like, of course, when something bad happens, you're like, no matter how bad it is, sometimes it's really bad, and other times it's just like, oh, like, why did I do that? But it's like, you know, you want to go back and you overthink it, and you're like,
you can't spend your whole life driving yourself insane. Like, and I can't express it enough. Like, I would tell everybody that if I could, like, instead of dwelling on what you did or what you could have done, just spend the rest of your days like being the best version of yourself and making yourself and the people around you, like, their lives better. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right.
I know. Just kidding. I really think that this is like such an important topic, because it is glorified so much that it's important to know, like, the reality, because not half the things we see is not, like, in movies, is not what it's actually like in real life.
Not at all.
So, and I think it's important people know the consequences, and they know that if they make a decision to go into a sorority or fraternity, like things like this can happen.
Yeah, definitely.
And if that's a decision you're going to make, just be prepared.
I know.
That's it, you know?
Yeah.
But not everybody knows that. They really do, because they really do just go, oh my God, my stomach. They really do just go into it thinking that it's something positive, and it's it's this group that they're going to get. So
yeah.
But you did amazing, and thank you so much for wanting to come on and share your story. I really appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much.
You did so good.
Thanks.